This is going to be kind of a weird Sunday in that today is our 6th anniversary, which is pretty exciting. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this kind of crept up on me. Normally I plan 9 months out, but COVID just put the nix on that. I have planning retreats and we plan 9 months ahead of time with special events and weddings and nightlight services and all that other stuff. And about 2 weeks ago I thought, wow, our 6-year anniversary is coming up, and it just wasn't even on my radar. And so today's going to be a little bit odd. I basically went through all my pictures for the last year, and I'm going to show them to you. This is going to be like one of those awkward dates where you show up and the dad wants to show you all the family photo albums, but that's what it's going to feel like a little bit. But for some of you, this has felt like 2020. How many of this has felt like 2020 to you a little bit? And I agree, except I'm the guy on the left. See, you saw it, and you've seen all the negative memes and been filled with so much of the negativity that you're immediately the guy on the right, right? When I said how many of you felt like 2020, all of you went to him, getting punched in the face. But I'm punching life in the face. And Daylight is punching life in the face and punching 2020 in the face, meaning we're winning. And Daylight's 6th anniversary is a big deal, especially in the age of COVID. There's a lot of churches that are closing their doors. There's a lot of churches that we have about 60, 70 people on the campus right now, which is about 50% or 60% of our population pre-COVID, which is amazing. Even churches that are meeting in person, only about 30%, 25% show up. And so you guys are coming out. We haven't had to ask for money from anybody. We've been self-sustaining the whole time. We're winning. Daylight is winning. And this year has been really, really good. It's been exciting. And so this is Daylight 2020, 6-year anniversary. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for your faithfulness. And we're going to talk about this building and where it came from over the next 10 or 20 minutes. But you guys did this. And we own this place free and clear now. We don't own a penny on it. We're paying our bills. It's all in an age where churches are struggling, it's good. And you guys are the reason it's good. And I just love you guys. I was thinking before the service, we had about 18 greeters out there this morning because everybody showed up to help with the food truck. And you guys are just stellar human beings, and I love you a bunch. And we're done with these stupid 4 crooked pillars that we used for so long. Man, I got to where I hated setting those things up so bad. And the theater was amazing. It was really a great spot. But, I mean, at the beginning of Daylight, I was waking up at 4 in the morning every Sunday. So I was taking Ambien on Saturday night to get to sleep at like 9 or 8 o'clock so that we could get up early enough to make this thing happen. And we were trekking in and trekking out, and I was flat exhausted. And by the time we moved to this building, my whole team was exhausted. We were all getting pretty close to, I think, the end. We were just like, we can't keep doing this. And we're no longer there. And that all happened in 2020, basically. So God has been good this year. In the middle of the COVID season, God has been doing some really neat stuff, and now we have a home, which we'll talk about more as we go. We had a big billboard over one of the streets this year that said, "Mercy triumphs over judgment." We had another one that says, Jesus says, "Let's eat," and then it references the passage in Scripture where it says, "I stand at the door of your heart and I knock, and if anyone lets me in, I'll come in and I'll have a meal with him." And so we're sending this message out into our community that God is good and He's close and He's available, and that Jesus. I saw on the back of Bridget's T-shirt a while ago. What's it say on the back of that T-shirt? It doesn't say Jesus ate everyone. It says Jesus ate with everyone. And we're advertising that. We had Jason Clark since this time last year, and he came out. He's the author of Prone to Love and Surrendered and Untamed, and put on a great conference for us. We've done a bunch of baptisms in the hot tub behind my house, and actually in our bathtub at one point when the hot tub was unavailable. And Abby sang "Nothing But the Blood" with a guitar with about 30 people crammed into our master suite bathroom. And it's been good. As Nancy mentioned during the announcements, we give away about 15 to 19% of our income that comes in. As soon as it comes in, we give it away. And this is one of the families we give to. They've moved to the Balkans, and they're in Zagreb, Croatia now, learning the language, and they're going to share the love of Jesus with the people of Croatia. And actually, that's Steve and Deanne, the parents, and then Luke, who's sitting on the couch right now, is a missionary. He's a campus missionary in Chicago, and these are people that we support. And there's a long list of people we support in Lima, Peru, and we distribute missions literature and apologetics training and families of LGBTQ plus people. In evangelical circles, there's a tendency for people to kind of to kick out their children when they come out, and we think that it's a good thing to restore those families, and so we invest in an organization that trains up churches in what's called Posture Shift, and investing in those families to restore those families. And you can be on either side of the aisle theologically and believe in that the families should be held together. And we support missionaries in South Korea and trafficking rescue and the 1040 window, which is Arabian countries, and disaster relief through Convoy of Hope. And we give every month. So 15%, 11% automatically goes out the door every month, and then the other 4% we give to special missions projects. Like this last month, there's an author writing a book called Putting Jesus into His Place, and it's kind of a semi-scholarly work on the divinity of Christ. And we bought him a stack of books, academic resources that he needed to write his book. And we're just able to help these people because you guys are faithful and because God continues to work through you. And we did a St. Jude's retreat. St. Jude's, unfortunately, has shut their doors. The grant that allowed them to stay open dissolved, and so they are no longer around. But as of last year, we did a retreat, and all the alumni still want us to do this retreat if we can. And so it's a recovery center, and these girls are coming out of recovery. And Joseph Bond, I see in the back, did an amazing job preaching that night. He has an expertise in addiction recovery, and he just preached the fire out of that campfire that night, and it was just good stuff. And this is stuff that's going on all the time and still going on. And then we found this place, and this was the wildest thing in the entire world, which I'll get into in a little bit. But this is what the room looked like when we bought it, and you can see what it looks like now, and we'll get to that. And we had small events, little worship sessions at our house, and people would come in and worship God together. We started our youth ministry, fifth grade through high school, a little bit earlier last year, but it has really started to move this year. And 2 years ago, we had no youth ministry at all. In fact, we had one family that showed up that was giving substantially and kind of financially undergirding us to the point where we were just about to hire a youth minister, and then they left because we didn't have a youth ministry. And so it's been a source of frustration to not have that for the first 4 years of Daylight Church, and now we have one, and good things are happening there. And of course, The Mandalorian came out in this last year, so everybody's winning. Everybody is winning everywhere, and that has nothing to do with Daylight, but we still get to play a part of this global thing that's happening. We once again supported Site 61 in their Thanksgiving banquet in an impoverished area of Louisville, where we came in and we give them the fine dining treatment as best we can, and you can see we all dress up in white and black and serve them at their tables. And these are people that probably would not get a Thanksgiving meal otherwise. And so we've done that every year that Daylight's been in existence, and we did it again last year, and we'll do it again this year. And it's good stuff. We've had small events like a chili cook-off, like a Christmas song gathering, which I feel goofy saying for some reason, and our Christmas banquet where Bill DeGourier got this sweet T-shirt. And you're all jealous that he has it, and I can't blame you. You may not know this, but we hosted the National Guard are our neighbors over here, and we have a great relationship with them, and we hosted their Christmas banquet here. And man, it was a struggle to get this place even looking like this. I mean, it still looks like a construction site, and we'll talk about some of that in a minute. But they filed all these in here, did the banquet, and we're on the schedule this year to do it for them. And that's something we offer them free of charge, offer them the use of the facility to celebrate their Christmas banquet together. And of course, my good friend Craig Johnson and Hope Culture made a move to close their doors this last year, and a lot of their people joined us and are still with us. And so COVID was a really interesting time to try to plan a church merge, but several of you are in the room now, and several are waiting in the wings to rejoin once COVID kind of clears up. And so that was a wonderful part. I see Lynn Musselwhite right here, and Lynn's one of my favorite people in the world. And Cassie sang with us this morning, and there's others that have joined in. And we did our Valentine's Day bingo session and food for Regis Woods Nursing Home here over Valentine's Day last year, which was great. And then we were gearing up for this. And so these are the flyers. This is a picture of my computer screen, which is why it's a little pixelated. But we were gearing up for our launch, Easter 2020. We were going to have the big launch. We were mailing out 30,000 flyers, and this is what the back of the flyer looked like. It said, "We've prepared a place for you," with pictures of all the work that you guys have done. And Jesus ate with everyone, and free Grater's ice cream after the service, and we were so pumped. And then like 2 weeks before Easter, it just wasn't going to happen. Just weird. And it was crazy weird. There was one day we pulled up the trailer, and so many of you have served on that team, but you know that we pulled up a trailer at 6:30 or 7 in the morning at Stony Brook Theaters, and we unloaded, set up, did the service, threw it in a trailer, tore down, and we did it week after week after week for years. And then there was one day we pulled up the trailer here, and we just all realized we were done at the theater. We were supposed to have like an exit service at the theater, like a big celebration where we're going away from this place, yeehaw, and it just didn't happen. And we pulled up the trailer, and we just made a call that day because it was that week prior to, it was after the NBA closed, but prior to all the churches closing, and we had to make a call. And we finally just said, okay, we're not going to have service in the theater this week, and so let's unload the trailer. And then all of a sudden, the trailer was empty, and it was just weird. It was like, George's like, yes. And I kind of felt that, but I felt kind of sad that we didn't get the chance to go away. We didn't have a home going. We have a homecoming, but we don't have a home going, and the homecoming is still to come. And so just this very, very strange life that we've been living in the COVID season. And this is how my family did church for weeks after that. We would go out on the trails, and the benefits of amazing modern technology is that we could watch our church service on a log out in the woods somewhere. And we would just, and I live in a community, we've got about 13 people that live with us, and so we would go, and people would always think we were violating COVID when we were all together. They couldn't possibly connect with the fact that we were a family, but we'd be out in the woods together, and people would keep their distance and look at the weirdos, but we would put our phone down and turn it up, and we would have worship out in the woods, and I think we even served communion one time. We just prayed together and listened to the sermon and loved God out there, and this is how I spent much of my COVID season. And so you can knock that off your bucket list today. You may notice athletic shorts peeking out from under the robe, and that's because I was working out and vegging out at the same time. And then this is how I conducted a wedding. You may notice that I have volleyball sweatpants on with a suit and tie. So COVID is peculiar. It's just very strange. And this was our staff meetings for quite some time. And I don't know why Rusty's always in the Amazon, but he is. He's in the Amazon with the whole world behind him. The whole world's behind you, Rusty. And this is what it looked like. And then eventually, so we started with this, where we were doing online services where we would just record stuff with our phone. But then we moved on. Once we got the lighting and the TVs and stuff like that and the backdrop built here, we started doing these services. And we were able to put them out there. And I've kind of fast forwarded because all the building stuff happened in November of last year. Just all of a sudden, there was somebody who wanted to fund the building, and we sent him a note, and he said, "Okay, buy it," and they paid cash for it. And so I remember the very first picture I took of this place. I was with Molly Bond, realtor. So if you need a good realtor, Molly is here, and she did a stellar job for this and for my house and for my other house, and she's very good at what she does. But she was with me when I took this picture, and this picture is going to blow your mind. This was just an amazing, amazing picture. That's the first picture I took of Progress Boulevard, because we didn't know what was above the rafters. There was a drop ceiling in here, as you saw, and we didn't. And as it turns out, there's a flat ceiling with a gabled roof over it, but they built the gabled roof over the HVAC systems, which there's 4 10-ton units up there. And so that was a concern, was what if we have to replace all these units, and can we even get to them? So the very first thing we did was crawl into the ceiling and start taking pictures, and that's where it all began. And we started drawing out maps of the place. So this is something I did on a legal pad, and this is what we submitted to our architect, and the architect started looking to see if we could get our seating in here, and then we built a budget and said, can we make this thing happen? And you guys contributed about $50,000 over the next few months, and the family that bought the church for us contributed another $150,000 or $100,000 to the remodel. So we got about $150,000 in the remodel, but it had to happen. And I just want to run through some of the stuff that we had to do. And this is what the building looked like when we bought it. This was our architect's concept. And so we planned on some big changes, as you can see, real quickly. And it was a nightmare to get keys in hand, and Molly can attest to that. There were some roadblocks in the way that made it feel like maybe this wasn't going to happen multiple times, but then God was just good, and it pushed forward, and we ultimately made a really aggressive offer on the place and landed it, and keys were in hand. And that night, these people showed up, and we started ripping out a drop ceiling. And I just thought, man, this thing's going to happen. I mean, it just clicked that people cared enough to show up that night and start ripping out a drop ceiling. And then the next day, we started in on the shed outside, which is the youth building, which we keep downwind for obvious reasons. And it was just full of junk. I mean, they'd had some Boy Scout computer camp here, and full of computers, and we spent hours that day just ripping stuff up. And Ryan, you can kind of see him behind this shrubbery. I mean, everything was just a mess, and it just took a ton of work of cleaning up branches and leaves and ditching stuff. We took so many loads to the dump, and so many loads to recycling, and so many loads of this and that, and so many loads of landscaping stuff. And thankfully, the place came with a lot of really cool stuff, like chairs that we sold off, and so we started making a profit on the building immediately. The folding tables you may have seen that we used for the banquets, those are about $800 or $700 on Amazon, and the building came with 28 of them. And we've got about 90 chairs left out of there, about 300, and we sold a bunch of them. And so we started making money on what was left behind, and we kept things like this hot dog roller, which is obviously very important. And we got rid of things like the Idaho Real Premium mashed potatoes. They're long gone, which I thought was funnier than you guys do, apparently. And we ate a lot of meals together. We sat around a table together. We ate a lot of Chick-fil-A, and Ryan made a lot of barbecue for us. And while we were all working together and making this thing happen, and ultimately we started having one of our community groups here that still thrives on Thursday nights, and this was happening during construction. And one of my favorite stories was we had a pool table in the back that had a Miller Lite pool light over it, which we finally decided was not excellent for the kids' ministry or the nursery, and so we ditched that. And the pool table, we listed it on Facebook Marketplace with the caveat, you must haul it away. We will not help you. We put probably in bold letters. And during all communications with people, we're like, okay, it's only, I think, $75 or $100, but you have to come and get it. We're not touching it. We're not helping you. And these good old boys showed up with a dumpster. And they got it about halfway out and shoved in the door when it got stuck, and their little four-wheel trolley that they had brought shattered or broke in half. And thankfully, Amy and Ronnie Mills were here, who you see Amy in the picture. And I was mad pastor at this point. I'm like, I'm not helping. I'm just not going to help. And Amy and Ronnie, and I'm sitting there thinking, it's impossible. They're going to have to break it down with a sledgehammer and get it out of here. And they managed to get it out and get it in the dumpster. And I want to applaud Amy in particular for one particular reason, and that's these lights. These lights were all over the place, and we ultimately hadn't made all our decisions as far as lighting in here. And we decided to rehang these, and I just feel really stupid about it at this point, but we were rehanging them with wire up and you can see some of them are already hung. And one day we came in, and Amy had been here slaving for hours, and it was a job that was really difficult for two people to do on scaffolding. If you had two people to hold them up and one to do the wire, and it was still really challenging for two people. She had been here by herself for many hours, hanging these lights, hung them all. On the day we made a decision to go a different direction and do different lighting in here. So it was a surprise. I showed up, and it's like your kid showing up. My birthday was yesterday, and my kid comes and brings me a present. And if I was like, well, I don't like your present at all, that's kind of how it felt. So Amy, I'm so sorry for that moment, and I love you, and I appreciate your work, because it was hand-breaking, grueling labor that she did for hours out of the kindness of her heart, and then it turned out to be. It did help because we were able to do the National Guard Christmas with those lights, but ultimately they all came down again, and so I'm just so embarrassed and sorry. And I felt like it needed to be acknowledged publicly, and we did lots of tearing down and lots of scrubbing. Those bathrooms were nasty, and they've been scrubbed so many times, and they were scrubbed so many times to get the stank out, and there's still a little bit back there. But Vicki does an amazing job cleaning every week, and there was a lot of color decisions that needed to be made, whether it was interior, exterior. We would do sample colors, and fabrics for the chairs. We had to do all this stuff, and so we had teams of people involved in all this, making those decisions, and Bob and Ryan decided to expand the stage, which right now it's a tight fit, and so they gave us this extra space right here, which is just beautiful, and they just decided to take it on themselves. So Bob showed up and said, hey, I want to help, and basically he should have put a cot in the back. He spent so much time here over these last few months, and some things you'll never see that Bob did. Bob built a key hanger in our back room, which is our building to scale, which is pretty fascinating. Isn't that amazing? He just shows up with this one day and said, I built you a key rack. And it's got all the water spigots and electrical outlets and all of them labeled on there. And so now, we even have a new hook outside for the food truck keys, because now we know where the food truck parks. And so you just go in, if you need a door key, you know where it is. And he just did that out of the kindness of his heart. And we tore down a lot of drywall. And here's a picture of Tom Cruise with no teeth, because I thought it was funny. And we hauled stuff in. And one day I showed up, and this is what the parking lot looked like. And I was just planning to come in and work that day. And all these people were here. There were so many times that I showed up and people were laboring because they love Daylight Church and they love each other. And this touches me. This picture has always touched me. I thought maybe that day I'd be the only person here. And this is what the parking lot looked like when I showed up. And this was a weekday, I think. And so you guys just killed it. Just amazing. And we built walls. And this is another story similar to Amy's where Stu and Chris spent hours and hours scraping up tile right behind that bar. And then Kedrick Potter and his wife Hannah, they got married yesterday. And he owns a deconstruction company, or works for a deconstruction company. So he brought in this tile breaker that they had spent hours and hours, bloody hands, basically. And then Kedrick comes in and finishes the rest of the building in an hour. And so if we had known ahead of time, they could have saved that time. But that's another time where I just felt like a goober. Lots and lots of washing. Lynn, thanks for that. And so much painting. I mean, every inch of this place needed to be painted. And Vicky spent 400 hours here, easily. She was just here constantly painting. And one of these days, there's certain people that we're going to take to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse and give them a thank you, but we're holding off on that until post-COVID. Lots of electrical work. Larry Middleton stepped up and said, hey, he's just passed his master electrician course, and he said, I want to do it all. I did it all free of charge. Probably $10,000, $15,000 worth of electrical work that we would have had to pay that he came in here and did. Just spent time on scaffolding, time on ladders, climbing up and down, hung all those lights you see in the background, and hung all kinds of stuff, and drove cables through the walls, and did it all just out of the kindness of his heart. Just good people. And this bar, Ryan and Chris spent 100 hours just sanding the top of that thing. They didn't know what they were getting into, and I'm glad they didn't, because it's beautiful. If you haven't seen it back there, go check it out. Hauling TVs and electrical equipment and hanging lights. And Chris Duke and I spent lots and lots of time up here hanging these lights and lining them out and figuring out how to work them. And just lots of hours put in. And I don't know if you saw it, but there was a sand volleyball court buried in the backyard that we didn't know about. So when we went to redo the parking lot, there was 18 inches of sand below the surface that we had to deal with that was there. And my buddy, who's a contractor and a follower of Jesus in Texas, sent his man up to do it. And what should have cost us $35,000 cost us $19,000. So just kind people all over the world stepped into this thing. There's Bob and Larry. Actually, that's not Bob. That's Larry, though. Framing up our youth building. And Chris Booker spent hours and hours and days here working on electrical stuff. And then signage and landscaping and land cleaning. And this was a bird's nest that was in one of the HVAC systems. That was a pretty hoot of a day. This is a woodchuck that was in our yard, and he thought I couldn't see him. And laying down carpet, and we had this all blanketed off for a while, and Bob called them the wizards because you weren't allowed to look behind the curtain for quite some time because every speck that landed in the resin back there on the bar would be permanent, and so we weren't allowed back there for quite some time. And we got the exterior painted and started putting the signage up, and I don't know if you guys have seen it at night, but it glows. It's pretty cool. And a lot of you haven't seen that, right? You only see it during the day, but it looks really nice at night. That picture is not a great picture because those pillars look yellow, and they're clearly not yellow. And then we got the chairs, and lots of people helped us haul those chairs in. And that seems like a little thing, but each one of these chairs had cardboard taped around the base of them and cardboard taped around in stacks, and you had to move stacks, and you had to take each chair off and remove 4 pieces of cardboard and then throw those pieces of cardboard, and just hours and hours of labor that we don't think about just because we come in and sit in the chairs and there they are, but it was just kind people coming in and working their tails off so that we could have these chairs. And then we made it, and here we are, and glory, glory, hallelujah, I laid my burdens down. And it was so weird. It was almost like the antithesis of the day we unloaded the trailer. Then all of a sudden there was this day when the building was ready. It's like, well, we're kind of good here. Like we can come in and open the doors and have a service. And it just kind of happened one day. But it didn't just happen one day. It happened because so many of you gave of your hearts and lives and resources to make it happen. And there's no way I could give you my appreciation and thanks enough. And I think God is applauding you right now. And so let's just give everybody a hand and say, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And why is that important? I saw this in a book recently. It says, at the risk of being misunderstood or called heretics, we want to engage, listen, and be the presence of Christ with those who hold different perspectives. We want to hang out with all the folks that make church leaders nervous. And frankly, we want to be the kind of people who make church leaders nervous. Because we know that is who Jesus was and what Jesus did. You know, we say Jesus ate with everyone, and we're about to go out and share a meal together, and we're going to share communion prior to that. But there's a person who's come to the church just recently that's getting actively involved, and I was asking them what it was about Daylight that intrigued them. They've been watching for months online and finally came a couple weeks ago, and now are already jumping into stuff. And this person said, I kind of paraphrased it because I didn't write it down at the time, but this person says, I've been in church a lot. I've been taught to preach, and I've been taught to lead worship. What I need is a church that loves people well, and it seems like Daylight is doing that. This person indicated that they want to be trained in how to love people, and after watching for so long online and kind of experiencing the community now, they feel like this is the place for that. And that may be the best thing a pastor could ever hear. Preaching and worship are great, but loving people, that's where it's at. And that's what I hope Daylight will always be. And we are that. We're winning. You guys are that. And I'm just proud to be your pastor. I'm proud to be a part of Daylighters, and it's exciting. And so we started our food truck ministry where we take it out once a month and take it to a place where people have a hard time getting their bellies full on a particular week when there's ministries that feed all the time, but on these particular Saturdays, there's no ministry that feeds. And so we fill in that gap. And last time we went out, we fed about 100 people in about an hour and 15 minutes. They just lined up. Just as soon as word got out that there was a food truck, man, boom, 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 they were there. And our people meet them and talk to them and pray with them. And lots of tears are shed. And one, it was pretty interesting. My son, who's 12 years old, came with me, and there was a fight that occurred. Well, one lady who obviously had some substance abuse problems came and stole a sandwich from a guy and stole the barbecue sauce and smeared the sandwich all over her face and sprayed the barbecue sauce all over her and threw it all down and stormed off. And I don't even know what that was all about. But then there was a couple that got into a fight, and it looked like it could turn violent for a second. And then there was this other woman standing next to my son. She says, "Don't ever forget what you see here." She said, "Tell your friends so they'll stay in school." And then she stood there for like 10 minutes telling him over and over, "Stay in school, stay in school." And he wanted to say, "I'm homeschooled," but that didn't seem appropriate at the moment. But it's just, we want to reach people that nobody else is reaching. There's a quote from Bob Goff recently that talked about how many Christians don't reach out to particular types of people because they don't want to get anything on them. And he says, you want to be the kind of Christian that has it all over you all the time. And that's the church we want to be. And now we have a home base to make that happen, a home base and a food truck and even more exciting things happening. We almost bought a big stretch limo recently to pick people up for church, but we nixed that idea. But we have a home, and it's a home base, and we're feeding people out of it and serving people barbecue sauce in generous quantities. And God has just been good. And now we've started Daylight Church events, and so we hope to monetize this thing. And I just found out today that the YMCA Safe Place is going to be using it free of charge coming up. The National Guard Christmas is in here, and the American Red Cross is doing a blood drive here. I think it's November 29th. And so we're also donating out now that God has blessed us with a building, we're blessing others with it. And that's, in my opinion, how it ought to be. And we're starting to do weddings here. This was a COVID wedding, and the preacher just looks dapper in his suit, I feel like. And we've done 3 weddings in here so far, and we hope to do a whole lot more. This is a picture of a bus that a runaway got on. We met a runaway through our downtown outreach, and her parents were very concerned about her, and she had some mental health issues and wasn't on her meds. And we've tracked down the parents and put them in touch and put her on a bus, and she went home, and she's been with them, and we've been in contact ever since. And it's just one changed life and a family restored because you guys are generous, because we have a home, because we're going out and ministering to people. And we've started doing baptisms here. We've got a big cattle trough that we stick up here. It's not a trough. I was corrected on that. It's a cattle something. Anybody know? A cattle, that's right. And it sits over here, and we baptize people in it, and it's exciting. And this is a picture of a gentleman who just went to Teen Challenge for a year to get free of substance abuse, and he's been attending Daylight pretty regularly. And this is a ministry that we did at Price Elementary, and that's our own Jamie Tilton in the background right there, looking fine. And that was a day that we helped distribute school supplies. And like I said, November 11th, the food drive here. And we're having a worship session with Justin Rizzo here. Justin Rizzo is from IHOP, International House of Prayer, on October 19th. We're going to get back on nights of worship where we come in and we have extended times of music and prayer and celebrating God. And then here's where it's really at. This was our first meeting here on site. We got the Grader's food truck, which we have today. And people just showed up. And these are just really beautiful people. I mean, we are surrounded constantly by top-notch individuals that are beautiful and wonderful and exceptional. Why did he get an awe and nobody else did? Oh, it's your... Nobody thinks the others are beautiful. Aw. Okay, no. This is my favorite moment so far in the building, or having the building, is we played basketball. Me and my wife and Jordan Mitchell took on 4 of our youth group. And at one point, Kylia turned to the others and said, "We're getting beat by old people." And we pray together and believe for each other. And Kat Smedley and Ernie, who you see us praying with, Kat had a bad report as far as cancer in her liver. And the newest report, here's a beautiful picture. Yeah, that's okay there. The newest report is that all these spots in her liver are shrinking dramatically. The smallest ones are gone and the biggest ones are much smaller, and that shouldn't have happened. And so we're just believing God to do good stuff. And so we want to celebrate today. We've got the Graders Food Truck Barbecue we're going to go to first, but first I'm going to invite Rusty up. Rusty's going to lead us in communion, and communion, of course, comes from the same English root as that community does. We just want to be a family, and we figured communion and some food together, and then we're going to close in a worship song in just a moment. But Rusty, would you take over from here, and then he'll guide and direct you from what to do from here.
All right, so while the band's coming up, underneath your chair is one of these. So go ahead and do that while we're doing this awkward pause. So, right before everything was going to happen, right? Jesus got up with his people. He's up in the upper room. He's hanging out with his peeps. And he's talking to them, and he's trying to tell them, like, what's going to happen tomorrow. What's going to happen tonight? All this stuff is going to happen, right? So he sits down, and they're having a meal together. And he's trying to tell them, I'm going to die for you. And this is going to start something that's just going to be amazing. So all this stuff we've been doing for the last few years, it's all going to, be crazy over the next 24 hours or so. And then we really get to see the kingdom work. So all this kingdom I've been talking about, they've been looking for him to come in and take over. And he's trying to tell them that's not how it's going to happen. So he picks this up and he kind of tells them two things. He says, I want you to do this every time you think of this, because I'm literally going to give my flesh and my blood for you. And then the next time we do this, we're going to be in the kingdom that we've been talking about. So I'm not going to do this again until the kingdom comes again. Now, they didn't understand any of that. They understood none of it. But we get to look back and say, hey, this is cool. So a lot of times we come and we do communion and we think about what happened, right? Where he literally, and I'm for all the young in the room, I'm literally using the word literally correctly, right? So he literally gave his flesh and his blood for us to begin this kingdom, to begin starting this thing that we all get to play into. But then he gets up and says something else, which is just as important, I think, when he says, the next time we do this together, it's going to be in the kingdom. Of course, they missed all that either, too, right? They didn't understand that at all. But here we sit in a broken world that looks like a punching match, right? Where everything's going on and everything's crazy. Nothing is like what it's supposed to be. Nothing is like what it's supposed to be. We've got fighting, we've got anger, we've got fear. All these things that we've been talking about in the Sermon on the Mount that we're not supposed to have, right? We're living in the middle of it. So that's why we do this. For the same two reasons that Jesus did it with his peeps. To remember what he did. To remember that the kingdom is starting, the kingdom is here, and we're in the middle of it. And then to celebrate that the next time we sit down and do this with him, we'll be in the kingdom. So it's a remembrance and it's a celebration. We live in the middle of that. So we need this reminder. And there are churches that do this every week. And they have people come up and they share the bread so you get the unity together. And they share the wine or the juice so that you see that unity together. Now, of course, we're in COVID and we get to do it in little cups, right? But that's the thing. We as the church get to do something different. All that fighting and all that craziness, that's supposed to go on out there. But when we come in here, when we come together, whether it's here, whether it's in those rooms that we talked about, or whether it's out in the forest, or whether it's you and your family just hanging out. This is different. The church is different. We're not supposed to fight. We're supposed to be unified. This unifies us. This remembrance of what he's done for us. This remembrance, this celebration of what he's going to be and where we're all going to be. And we get to bring little glimpses of that kingdom. And that's what we're talking about with this Sermon on the Mount. This sermon, every week we talk about the kingdom breaking through, and we can be a little bit of that kingdom. The youth are talking about it. The kids are talking about it. We're all talking about this kingdom. We get to be a part of that. We get to show what it's like when everybody who's different and weird and the same and awesome and good looking, when we all get together and sit together and say, this is what's important. That he literally gave his life for us so that we can all sit down in unity and love on each other.